Hey everyone, welcome to the Killed Off Screen podcast. My name is Joe, and I'm joined by my friend, co host, and found footage fiend, Prentice.
Hello, welcome to the podcast with the best horror news and reviews. Today we're going to talk about the Borderlands, as it's called in Everywhere But America, and Last Prayer, as it is called exclusively in America, because we have to be different. It's going to be a found footage horror movie, but before we get into that, we do have some news. Uh, I feel like I should have saved the link to this just so I could read it directly, but actress Mia Goth of the Pearl and X movies and probably some other ones that I'm not thinking of right now. She was in Infinity Pool, I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
Suspiria as well.
Suspiria, yeah. Well, she's been accused of kicking a background actor in the head for the movie Maxine in a new lawsuit. This is the big news for us uh, this week. Real not as fun as a lot of the news that we'd like to try and do, but I think it does warrant talking about right now. A lot of actors and actresses are kind of getting called out for their shitty behavior, and this just feels like the next one in that line of kind of Jonathan Majors with Marvel and some others with their own respective movies and franchises, and this just kind of sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really serious allegation. So you were looking a little more into it than I was. You're the one who actually informed me of it the other day. Is
Yeah.
there like an official lawsuit already, or is this more like a rumor or just kind of like a headline?
Yes. So the suit's been filed, which is how the news broke. Which I'm gonna step back out of podcast mode for a second. You don't want this news to break from a lawsuit. If you're Mia Goth, if you are Ty West, who is named in this lawsuit as a defendant, if you're A24, who's also named in this lawsuit as a defendant, that you don't want it to break as the lawsuit breaks. You want to get out ahead of this. I feel like they did a this is just going to be a PR nightmare for the movie. It's going to be a PR nightmare for West, who's just breaking out onto the scene horror wise. I think he's maybe right at the end of breaking out, but he's had a couple really successful horror movies and he's really making a name for himself. And for A24, you're horror's darling. Like everyone loves A24 horror movies right now, and you want to be out ahead of this, or else it's going to be a PR nightmare. And it just seems like it's going to be a PR nightmare for a little while.
Yeah, depending on how substantiated everything gets. Let's talk a little bit more about what he actually said. So correct me if I'm wrong. He claims that they were doing a stunt, they were doing a take where he's an extra. He's lying on the ground, and Mia Goth either just runs past him or like kind of trips over him and then gets back up and runs again, something like that. And he claimed that in one of the takes, Mia Goth came dangerously close to like stomping on him or hitting him, and he claims he just went to Ty West or somebody else, like one of the unit directors, and was just like, "Hey, could you tell her to just be a little more careful, please?" And then he says that she confronted him in a private setting and was talking down to him and like kind of "Who the fuck are you?" type of stuff, I suppose. And then
Yes.
intentionally in the next one, like just got a running start and like Charlie Brown to that shit and just like kicked him in the head,
Yeah.
apparently.
It was you have it just in the opposite order. He went to the second assistant director, said, "Hey, I almost got stomped on. Can we be careful about this? I don't want to get hurt and I don't want to ruin the take, so we have to do this a bunch of times." And literally on the next take, she kicked him in the head. He claims it was deliberate. And then after the scene was completed, uh, he alleges that she followed him to the bathroom and taunted him, mocked him, kind of made it clear that she'd done it on purpose. Uh, he didn't get any per the lawsuit. These are all allegations, so just please. I'm not saying anything is factual, and I think I'm going to end this by saying I'm not going to draw any conclusions. Uh,
Right.
but but the suit claims there was no medical attention or assistance given to him on set. He had to drive himself home, likely with a concussion. He had to pull over a couple of times while he was lightheaded and woozy, and then was informed the next day that he was fired from the shoot. Uh, despite having multiple days left to come back and shoot more scenes. So that's why A24 and Ty West have been named in the suit. They've been named for wrongful termination purposes. And Mia Goth has been named for battery, which is the unlawful striking of another person with the intent to hurt them. Um, Really, just this all sucks. There's no great way to do this. I I said in the past, not on this podcast, obviously we don't talk about kind of more popular culture style movies, but when the Jonathan Majors news broke, I was very much in the realm of I'm not going to draw any conclusions until the outcome of the case is done. And now that the outcome of the case is done, I'm very much like, yeah, that's an awful thing that happened. And I think I'm going to do the same here. Although I will put my 2 cents in and say if he's going to name A24 and Ty West in this lawsuit, I think he's probably got some sort of claim in some regard because they're going to have a lot more. A24 especially is going to have a lot more punching power in terms of hiring lawyers. Um, and you don't really want to get them in on a lawsuit with the other two unless you feel pretty confident.
Yeah, I just really wonder. I'm very, very interested in hearing what A24, what Ty West, and what Mia Goth have to say because, to my knowledge, their side of the story has not gone up yet. And, they always say, there are two sides to a story. And just what he's saying kind of sounds weird. Like, there's so many stories of directors, actors, producers, etc., um, on film shoots just being assholes. But I'm
Mhm.
going to say, I don't know Mia Goth personally. I don't know what Ty West is like personally. I don't know this other extra or actor, this gentleman personally. But to my knowledge, nothing has ever come out about Mia Goth being, one of those actors, being one of those really just problem child type of personalities on a film set. So it just seems very strange because it goes well beyond the typical, oh, this person berated me, this person yelled at me. Like, that's running up and kicking somebody in the head. I mean, that's really serious. That's potentially fatal or you can cause permanent brain damage. And so it
Yeah.
just seems really, and then like, yeah, being confronted like in the bathroom, it's just, I don't know. It seems weird. I am kind of skeptical, but like I said, we don't know much. I just want to
Yeah,
hear what the other side has to say.
there's too much that has to come out still. This is early days. I imagine that if everything, like if there are security cameras everywhere, that's all probably going to come out in Discovery. Um, and I would not be shocked if this settled and they tried to just sweep this under the rug one way or the other. If there's any chance that this comes out badly for A24, West, and Goth, I feel like they're just going to settle this and move on and hope that it doesn't interfere with the movie at all. Because I correct me again if I'm wrong. I believe this is a continuation of X and Pearl.
It is. Yeah, it's the direct sequel to X.
Yeah, and you don't want to risk like you've got two movies in a row that are popular, that are well thought of. You just don't really want to risk that kind of derailing over something like this. Whether or not this results in Goth potentially not coming back for the next movie after this, who's to say? Uh, I don't know how far along in production they even are for this movie. So it's just a really weird spot for them, and I feel like this might be one where they try and quietly settle and just move on. And if Mia Goth stops getting roles for a while, maybe we know why.
Yeah, and I think that possibility is definitely going to be only if everything is just proven that it
Mhm.
was deliberate. And again, I don't know this guy. I don't want to cast aspersions on anybody, but I just want to throw out any kind of possibility in my mind, any potential reason why this would be coming up. And I
Mhm.
mean, it really could be a thing where like he was kicked and he was hit, but it was accidental. And now he's like, oh, let me try to get a settlement out of this shit. Like I was just going to
Yeah,
be an extra and either get nothing or maybe a couple $100 or some shit. And now I can maybe try to get a
it
lot of money.
could.
Like people in car wrecks do
Yeah,
that all the fucking time. Again, I don't want to
yeah.
like I don't know this guy. I don't know what his moral
If he
compass
did
is like.
have, yeah, if he did have a concussion or some like actual serious brain injury coming out of this, he might also need to file the lawsuit for his insurance. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of different ways that this could be nothing. There's a lot of ways that this could be really bad for everyone involved. It's too early to say, but it is at the exact time where you can start kind of making assumptions, which is really dangerous. And So I'll just, yeah, I'll leave it at it's really too early to make any sweeping generalizations or any conclusions, but this all kind of sucks.
Hopefully, it's just resolved in a way where everybody's content, everybody's happy. This guy, is well. Obviously, we do want this guy to be healthy. We hope he doesn't have any kind of long-lasting injury or damage to his head, obviously. And we hope the movie still gets made and just everybody walks away happy. But yeah, we're gonna see how this goes. It's gonna be funny if this is one of those things where we're recording this right now on Saturday the 13th, and this news broke just the other day, right?
Yeah, just a couple days ago, I want to say 2 or 3 days ago.
Gonna be kind of funny if this is one of those situations where by the time we upload this on what day is it gonna be? Wednesday the 24th. Like it's
We've
already
all
been settled.
completely already.
Yeah, like so much new information comes out. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully the guy's all right. Hopefully everybody's all right, and they're able to get it settled. We still get a movie. That guy has his health, and we can all just move on. But the only news that I really have coming in for this is another one for the movie Longlegs by Neon. I realized last time when I brought it up, that little cryptic trailer they put up, I didn't really mention much of what it was. It was just kind of like a lo-fi esque phone call to police that a guy was making about his daughter, saying like, that's not my daughter. Something's going on.
I went and watched it.
And
It looks dope.
yeah, I do like
Whatever
the
it
kind
is,
of
looks dope.
lo-fi analog setup they went with it. It's very cryptic, obviously, and they put out another one just the other day saying, "Remember to say your prayers." Same thing. It's like 30 something seconds, except this one actually has what
Mm.
looks like a shot from the movie of investigators uncovering a crucifix and something underneath, and then same thing, lots of flashing imagery, and then kind of like runic symbols or something. So yeah, it's all very interesting. It's supposed to be a movie with Nick Cage, Micah Monroe, and even though we don't know much about it, I'm still very very interested. Like I said last week, just because of who's involved, the studio, and again, even if the movie bombs, I like this very minimalist and cryptic marketing they're doing for it.
Yeah, I'm digging the marketing that I've seen for this so far, and it just seems like my kind of jam. Just kind of like low key, low budget, but interesting, kind of conceptually. I love. We're going to talk about, I think, this a bit more when we talk about Borderlands Last Prayer. But I love just a kind of creepy horror movie that's just vibes and tone for most of it. Um, and that's what I'm getting out of this so far, especially that first one of That's Not My Daughter. Like, that's just like creepy tone, just really well preserved over like 30 seconds of not a lot really happening. Great. I'm super intrigued.
Yeah, it's kind of on the level of like a really good creepy pasta or something. It's kind of like that. It
100%.
gives off that kind of vibe. So do you want to go ahead and get into the Borderlands? I think it's Final Prayer, the
I
title.
had to find it. I think
Yeah,
it's Last Prayer.
I'm seeing
Um,
Final, but either way, it's the
Oh
Borderlands.
man,
Who
it's
cares?
different. Oh, I guess Final Prayer, The Borderlands. It's yeah. Okay, I think it is Final Prayer. I think weirdly enough, so I watched this on Tubi. I believe it is also on YouTube for free. Uh, you can get it through Amazon Prime if you have a certain subscription. I'm not 100% sure what that is. Um, but yeah, it's on Tubi for free with ads. I will say that the ads don't interrupt it too much, although there were a couple times where I was annoyed. Um, but essentially, it is a low budget English horror movie, found footage, uh, about a team of Catholic, I believe they're Vatican specifically,
Yeah,
investigators who are investigating a miracle at a small church in like rural countryside England. Um, and it's a slow burn. It's the found footage for me is really well done. I think we both agree that found footage can be really bad sometimes.
yeah.
And
Often
for
is
me,
because
I
of
think
budget constraints.
100%. And for me, I think this is one of those ones where clearly there's a low budget, but it's done really well. And the reason that it's found footage makes sense and plays into the plot really well. And just, I love everything about this movie. I am English. A majority of my being is is English. Um, I have an American accent because I'm was raised here. And I don't know, I don't know what you thought about this, but I fucking love this movie.
I know you really like it, and that's one of the reasons why we talked about it, or why we were going to talk about it going into today. Because one, there's nothing else really coming out. We're in that very big doldrum that always happens at the end of the year, very beginning of the next year for horror. It's just always that very slow point. And I know you've said you really love the ending, especially. Obviously, we'll get there. And when I finished it, I was kind of excited because I was not a big fan of this, and
Ah.
very brief tangent. A motivation for us making this podcast is that we often do not always agree. That's not to say that we always disagree, of course, but compared to a lot of people who run shows like this, I feel like most podcasts, the hosts kind of always tend to agree, or like an overwhelming majority of the time, which there's nothing wrong with, obviously. But we felt it'd be kind of interesting in that way because we have kind of conflicting opinions. And the second I got done with this, I'm like, all right, this is already going to be one where like we're only on episode two and
That's
we already got
interesting to
one.
me.
Yeah.
So I will say before it's really hard not to talk spoilers with this movie, but I can give a little more. So essentially, the priest for this little tiny church was performing a baptism of a baby, and it's on video. The family was, I guess, recording the baptism, and when the baby starts crying, the whole church starts to shake. Um, a bunch of stuff on the table behind them starts to move, and something drops onto the priest. I think it's meant to be like blood, but we don't really see it because something is interfering with the camera. And he starts to pray and makes it seem like God is there in the church with him. And that video is compelling enough that the Vatican is like, okay, we'll send some investigators to go and check this out. Um, I'll also say the reason that the uh, investigators are recording everything, they're wearing like headsets to make sure that nothing goes missing, they don't lose any footage, is because there was another investigation that went really badly, and they didn't know why, and they couldn't keep track of people that were there because of it. So they had to make sure that for the rest of their investigations, there's always going to be recorded. I thought that was a really compelling reason, especially as it continued to develop in the movie. It seems like you didn't find that to be as compelling, so I do want to hear like what you thought about that.
It just came off as kind of contrived, the typical like, oh, record everything kind of shtick. And I mean, it's a found footage movie. You're going to have that, but
Mm-hmm.
I talked about it in a review of Paranormal Activity Next of Kin, a video I did for that, where obviously the benefit of found footage is that you're able to record using much cheaper equipment. It's much more budget friendly. But the drawback is that now you have to contrive a reason why there is a camera being operated in your movie. Because, of course, otherwise you don't have to, because it's just how you make a movie. But when it's found footage, you have to think of, okay, why is there going to be a guy holding a camera here? Why is the guy recording what's going on right now? And so when it gets to the end of any found footage movie, you kind of have the logical problem of, okay, when shit starts hitting the fan, obviously any real person would drop the camera and run, but you just kind of have to deal with it. It's a convention of found footage.
Mm-hmm.
It's just part
And
of
they're
the price of
wearing
admission.
headsets in this one, which is the
Yeah,
reason that they don't just drop the cameras and run. There's also right at the end, I thought they did a really good job. One of the problems I have in found footage is when something goes horribly wrong at the end, or if something goes horribly right at the end. I don't want to spoil, but this movie has a. I think this is worth saying in spoilers or in non-spoilers. This movie has a really dour ending.
it does.
It's not. There's no happy ending in this movie. If you need a happy ending in your horror movies, this isn't the one for you.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh, and that I feel like that's important because the last 5 to 10 minutes of this movie can be pretty upsetting. The first time I watched it, I know it stuck with me for a while. Um, but there's always that, for me, there's always that question of like, okay, well, it went horribly wrong. Who recovered these cameras? But in this one, I thought they did a pretty good job of being like, hey, we're going to set up this extender that's going to send all the information out of the church that we're in. Because if we want to get out of here, we kind of need that. We're going to need to do that so that we can escape from this place that we're in. And I was like, Smart. That makes sense. That explains why, after the horrible thing that happens at the end of this movie happens, they still have the footage and we're watching it. So that made sense to me. I don't know. Was that another thing where you were just like, this feels contrived? Or did you like that as much as I did? Of like, they've got an explanation for all of this, and most of the explanations feel kind of rational.
I mean, that part was fine. When it came to the found footage elements, it was kind of a mixed bag in terms of the presentation. I've certainly seen significantly worse. Also, we forgot to give this a rating of if it's an off-screen kill
I
or
think we're gonna wait until we start getting into spoilers. I think
okay.
we'll talk about the movie, and then right before we get into spoilers, we'll give it a rating so that if people don't want to be spoiled, and I think again, watch this movie. If you're okay with dour endings, there is a twist in this. I think personally it's a really good twist. Don't have it spoiled for you by us. Pause once we get to giving it a rating and go watch it yourself. It's a brisk hour 30, even for like a slow burn. We haven't talked about that either. This is a slow burn.
It is.
And it's really tone heavy, really creepy vibes. There's a lot of shots in the dark, like not toned up lighting wise or night vision so you can see. There's a lot of shots that are in the dark, which feels really genuine. It's it's a vibes movie as much as it's a like a plot movie.
Yeah, and what Prentice is saying about the ending and the twist, I will be upfront. I don't think anything in this movie is really spoilers until the final like 60 seconds when you kind of get to
That's
that
fair.
twist. I think everything is very run of the mill until then. I do agree. I think it is a cool ending. Again, I'm not going to say until we get there and we talk in spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was saying the found footage elements were a mixed bag. I thought there was a respectable effort because I doubt they recorded it in actuality on like the little cameras.
Oh, for
They,
sure.
yes, it'd be
It's
like
not. It's
144p.
definitely not that. This movie is in HD when you
Yeah,
watch it on
so
Tubi. Like,
and of course for people who don't know, that's often how it really is with found footage when you're seeing like say like Blair Witch Project where you have like at the very end when you have Michael and Heather inside the old house and maybe it cuts from one to the other. Like you're seeing in front of you the character holding a camera, but when it cuts to their footage, of course it's the director of photography with the actual camera they're using to record the movie and they are
mhm.
filming. That's often how they actually make these. The actual actors typically aren't running around with the camera and, you know,
Yeah.
the vast
Well,
majority of these found footage
for the
movies.
first like 80% of it, that it was the cast filming a lot of it. Um, and then at the end, obviously, when it starts being a lot more intentionally shot, it
Mm.
is there's an actual cameraman behind the camera for the end
Yeah,
of Blair Witch.
there's
Here
an
it did
actual
feel
DP.
like really natural. I don't know about you. So there's a mix of found footage in this. It's the head cameras that they're wearing, which is kind of the typical found footage, pseudo shaky cam. Although I didn't think there was a ton of shaky cam because I don't like that.
No,
But it was mostly smooth. It felt a lot like you were looking through the eyes of someone for a lot of that. And then the rest of it is like environmental cameras that they set up. So it's like up and angled downwards in a room, in the corner of a room, stuff like that. And I thought those were really good. And I thought those shots, for me, were really good tone builders. Um, but I
it
think you disagree.
yeah, it to me came off as just very derivative of Paranormal Activity. I think there's a lot in this movie where I feel it's one you can dissect it and you can see what they're kind of biting off of. Like the ending, everything in the tunnel is like, okay, this is the ending of Blair Witch Project. You look at the scenes where nothing is necessarily happening, but they're trying to get you to be afraid of these still camera shots that Prentice is talking about at night. And it's like, okay, that's clearly Paranormal Activity. There's a movie called The Medium that I think has a very similar premise that I think just does it a lot better, but I'll save for that. Yeah, I thought there was a very respectable effort with the head cameras because again, they're not actually recording on those. So
Mhm.
I think there was a very respectable effort to make it really though appear like it was recorded on those in terms of the POV, just like the kind of height and where they're recording from, the framing, trying to mimic head movement with the movement of the camera. You know, there were some situations where I was kind of noticing that. I'm like, okay, it does feel like with the presentation and trying to make this appear authentic, like this is actually recorded by these people in this situation with head cameras. I thought they did a pretty decent job with that all in all.
I would almost not be shocked, and I'm trying to see if I can find kind of trivia about this movie.
Yeah, there's not
Um,
much.
so I will say there, yeah, there's not a lot of trivia on this movie. I will say another thing, maybe a trigger warning for this movie before you jump off to watch it. If you are claustrophobic, you might not like this movie. I
Or at
think
least
that
the end.
that's worth, or at least the end. The last like 5 minutes of this movie, you might really not like. Other than that, I will say if you don't like harm to animals being portrayed on screen, you probably also won't like this movie. Um, Other than that, like there, one thing I really like about this movie, that I hope you'll agree with me on is I think all of the performances in this movie are really good. Especially for a low budget. Clearly, these guys aren't uh, some of them are a little better known. I recognized Gordon Kennedy, um, who played Deacon in this movie. I recognized him from a couple things. He was in the Robin Hood TV show for BBC, which I really loved, but no one seems to remember, and in hindsight is bad. Um, he was in a couple. He's mainly been doing British television, but I thought he was really good. I thought Robin Hill, who played Gray, was really good, and I felt really bad for him. Um, he's edited a lot of movies. So he edited The Kill List, which a lot of people really love. It's a horror movie.
Oh, the 2011
I thought
movie
he
Kill
was
List, the Ben
yeah,
Wheatley movie. Oh, that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that
I
movie.
I thought he was really good, and really sympathetic, especially at the end of this movie. And I thought the Mark, I think Mark was his name, the the other Vatican priest who was kind of in charge,
Yeah, Mark.
delightfully well, like delightfully good at playing an asshole. Whoever that actor was, he did a really good job. And I thought those three and the kind of chemistry between them was really good, and I really enjoyed it, especially compared to some other found footage films where it's not as good.
Yeah, I thought the performances were fine. I think everybody kind of played their part believably. I did like that. I do feel like the characters are distinct from one another in terms of their personalities and why they're there. Like with Gray, so our characters, yeah, you got Robin Hill, who's Gray. He is a tech guy. He is the one setting up all the cameras, their mics, all
Mhm.
that. He's there specifically for tech. He is not part of the Vatican or one of
Yeah,
the priests
he's
or
not an
cardinals or whatever.
investigator,
Yeah,
which
he's
is
not
why
an
I feel
investigator.
so much worse for him at the end of this movie.
Yeah, so he's just the tech guy, and then you have Deacon, who is one of the two investigators, and then Mark. So those are your three central characters. There's not really anybody in the movie outside of them, really. There's two other priests in the movie who have very small roles.
Mhm.
They don't have a ton of screen time. And yeah, you have Gray, who is there just kind of because he needed a job. Like he lied about
Mhm.
being religious and really having that connection in order to get it. He just wanted a tech job. It seemed interesting
It
to him.
paid well, seemed
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
And then I did like what they did with Deacon's character, where it kind of reminded me, oh, again, another movie that it seemed very inspired by, The Last Exorcism, which again, it's very
Mm.
similar in terms of its general premise. You kind of have this old, jaded priest who is kind of battling with his faith. He sees things that are like miracles, but he's more scientifically minded and he's not one to believe all these things. He's much more skeptical. And then, of course, things start happening later on in the movie that kind of reignite their faith. So, again, you can see a ton of influences in what went into this movie and what inspired it. And yeah, I thought they did a pretty good job of making the three of them very distinct from one another. And then, yeah, Mark, who is just more of a dick, but not in a way that's like
It's
intolerable or hard to
understandable.
watch. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
understandable. He's
which
very
is
analytical.
it's really hard. I think a lot of movies really fail to make characters that are kind of a prick, but they have a good point and they kind of
Yeah,
have a an understandable reason for it. And I think we'll get into it more with spoilers, but I think Mark's reason for being a prick specifically to Deacon is really understandable and kind of like I there were a lot of this movie the first time I watched it, and I rewatched it for the podcast. There was a lot of this movie where I'm always like, Mark, you don't have to be such a dick. And then it always just comes back around and I'm like, yeah, Mark, I understand why you're a dick though. And that's hard to do in movies. And I think a lot
yeah.
of people don't get it right. And I think they got it right here.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the way you put that was pretty good. It's almost like a Dr. House kind of thing with Mark, where it's like, you're not wrong, you're just kind of an asshole. Like one of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
situations.
If everyone had listened to Mark, the awful things at the end of this movie wouldn't have happened to them.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. That's the thought I had. I think that was one of my notes. But yeah, I think that's good with non spoiler talk. If you want to
Yeah,
go
I think we
ahead
have to
and.
start getting into spoilers. So first, let's give it a rating. For me, so it's either killed off screen death, or did we get the gory goods? For me, we got the gory goods. I love this movie. Tone wise, I think pacing is really good. It's like a really strong slow burn. It's my type of religious horror, um, more than movies like The Last Exorcism or even The Exorcist. I love movies like this a little more. Um, so yeah, for me, we got the gory goods. This is a banger.
Nah, this is a off screen death. We are on a fucking losing streak right now, dude.
Oh man.
As far as I'm
What would you
concerned,
give this
we're on
out
a
of
fucking
10?
losing
I'm
streak.
curious. What would you give this out of 10?
I think I gave it a 4. If
Mm,
not for the twist, it was going to be a lot lower. Like I
wild.
kind of struggled to give it a rating at first. I was like, I could see this being anywhere from like a 2 to a 4 or a 5. It was like I had a really hard time
Love this movie.
with it. I think my problem is that it just doesn't feel like it becomes original or one of its own or very interesting until literally the last like minute or two. That's not
Mhm.
an exaggeration. I literally mean the last
Yeah.
1 to 2 minutes.
Totally, yeah. So I will say, I think this movie was better for me on a rewatch, knowing how it ended. Because I do think the again, Joe's right. It's the last like 2 minutes of this movie really do paint the prior 125 minutes in a completely different light. And so watching it again, knowing how it ended, I had to like prepare myself for the last 2 minutes of this movie because I don't know about you, it's really horrific.
Yeah.
It really stuck with me for a long time the first time I watched it. We're in spoilers, by the way. If you want to watch this being unspoiled before we start really going into it, pause here, go watch it. I think it's really good. I think it's worth a watch just for the last 2 minutes. Um, I would give this like a 7 out of 10 on, especially on a rewatch where I can see all of the points building up to how it ended. I want to ask before we say what the twist was. Did you see the twist coming?
No, no, I didn't. And it
Okay,
was cool.
but did it feel earned when it happened?
Sure. Yeah. I liked
Okay,
it. I liked the twist. My problem is there it just didn't feel like there was anything to really sink my teeth into for the other like 86 minutes of the movie or whatever. It felt like it only really came alive at the end. I think my biggest complaint is that it doesn't feel like it establishes any kind of threat throughout the entire movie. I can respect that they didn't want to show their hand. I understand why. I
yeah.
get it's a slow burn. They don't want to show their hand, but they don't give you enough to feel invested in terms of
So
scares,
you
in
didn't
terms of
feel
the
like
atmosphere and a threat until the very, very
mm,
end. That was my problem.
you didn't feel like um see for the I think for the first half of this movie they are waving a bit of a false flag. They want you to think that the villagers are going to be in on it and like part of the problem maybe cultists evil. And well, here's what the twist is. The current villagers aren't cultists, but before this church was built and on the ground that this church was built on, pagans used to worship it here and they would sacrifice babies to a deity, some god in the ground. And what it turns out to be is it's physically there under the church. And the last 2 minutes of this movie, which I again I find viscerally upsetting and genuinely horrifying, are there's caves underneath the church. They go down there to try and find Mark, who is missing, and because they see Father Krellick, who was the original pastor for that church and who killed himself about 80 minutes into the movie, about 60 minutes into the movie, about an hour in,
Yeah.
he throws himself off the top of the church.
Tower.
And for me, that's when it starts picking up the pace. And maybe it's because I knew what was coming. I really do think this movie is even scarier through the whole beginning of it. Once you know where it is, once you know what the ending is, it starts to feel really inevitable. So they go down into these caves. They're trying to find Mark. They see Father Krellick down there, and they're like, "What the fuck's going on with this? Are we hallucinating? What's going on?" they follow Mark into tunnels that increasingly get smaller and smaller until they end up in a tunnel that closes around them, and it is the stomach of this creature, and it digests them alive. And the last 2 minutes are them being digested. It's really horrific. I think the acting in those last 2 minutes is sublime. I think it's truly, really good, and just really dour and sad because they get fucking digested alive and eaten, and it's fucking like banger ending for me. Like, really, it hit the tone that was built the whole movie leading up to that for me. Maybe again because I knew how it ended, so I was like, for me, it felt like a build up to that inevitability of the ending. But I loved this movie, and it's Deacon and Gray who get digested, which is why you
Yeah.
feel really bad because Gray shouldn't be there. Get out of there, Gray.
Yeah,
Deacon
pick a
can go be
better
eaten. Get the fuck out of there.
pick a better job next time, man.
Yeah,
But
for real.
and then
So
yeah, and
what did you think of that?
like the ending?
Yeah, and
Yeah, I
like the
told
whole
you. I
build like the last 20 minutes towards that.
I don't fully agree. It didn't feel like things really picked up. It does for a moment. I was excited when we got to the scene where, Mark gets to the top of the bell tower and
Mhm.
Father Krellick jumps, and I'm like, I had the same thought, like, okay, like shit's getting going, and then they kind of bring it back down with like the bar scene where it's Deacon and Gray talking, and they kind of go back to the
Mhm.
house, and the other priest that we haven't really mentioned yet, Father Calvino, who comes in the
Who's
third
just for like
act.
5 minutes? Who's
Yeah,
great. I
he's
love
hardly in it. So there's a
him.
reason why we haven't really mentioned him. But yeah, like that's kind of the problem is that it does pick up for a second and then they bring the pace right back down. Like the kind of tempo of that, they bring it right back down. And then even at the very end, where they go to the church again with Father Calvino, he starts like a ritual and then shit hits the fan. Same thing. Right after that, when things kind of start blowing up, the lights start going out, the usual kind of stuff. Where same thing, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, just show me some crazy shit. It does the very annoying camera glitching. I think it's very lame. Honestly, they cut out a lot of things that would be interesting to see by having the cameras black out or glitch
I think that's a
or
budget
whatever. Yeah,
thing.
I think so too. I think it's like they probably would like to show more and have more of a crazy set piece, but it was just budget constraints. This is the kind of movie when you see it on Wikipedia, like nobody has a page. It's a very small crew.
Yeah.
You could see it's like I don't know. I would say ultra low budget, but I mean probably
Genuinely, Robin
maybe.
Hood is better known for being an editor on movies, and uh, uh, Aidan McArdle, who plays Mark, is better known for being in a couple TV series, and the same for Gordon Kennedy, who plays Deacon. They're both like this is such an English movie. It's a bunch of English actors who mainly do TV, who read the script and thought this is good enough that I'll do this for $20,000, and showed up and put in a banger performance.
Yeah, I definitely feel like they tried. I just again wish that it had more going for it. Not only just in terms of originality, because again, it's one where you can dissect it and you can just kind of
Mhm.
see everything that they're taking and throwing
Would
into their
you
own movie.
would you be interested in this if it got the Malum last shift treatment, where they brought everyone back and redid this with 4 times the budget?
Probably, yeah, because I do feel like a lot of the issues, like you said, were budget reasons. Like
Mhm.
we mentioned that when things kind of start getting crazy, they do the usual shtick where the camera's either blacking out or they're glitching, and you don't really see much
Mhm.
of anything. And yeah, to me, it just kind of feels lame. They tried to incorporate it in a way where just the atmosphere maybe would kind of get to
Mhm.
you, and I think for you that worked, and that's fine. And I'm sure for some other people they felt the same way, and that's great. But for me, it's just like, okay, you're kind of cutting out the actual interesting bits. You're kind of giving me
Yeah.
like you're building, and then where like the climax would be for this, the resolution, like you're then like cutting that out and kind of just blocking it, and like to me that's kind of lame.
Yeah, I think for some people this is gonna hit the same vein as Skinamarink,
Hmm.
where you're gonna really love the tone and vibes and feel of this movie enough to carry you towards the end, where it is kind of batshit in the last 5 minutes. Uh, and I don't know. I You said when Krellick jumped off the bell tower and killed himself, you were like, oh, we're finally getting somewhere, and then you felt like it was a letdown. For me, I loved everything that kind of followed that because it felt so real in a way that a lot of horror movies, when they do start building towards that final act, stop being realistic for the sake of that final act. And for me, it was like, yeah, the fucking priest in this small town just killed himself. Of course, the people who watched it happen are going to be shaken up and kind of not want to do anything. And of course, the fucking townsfolk are going to be like, get the fuck out of our town. You just killed our priest. That's how they're going to see it. And for me, I was like, this is really good buildup. And it also kept playing into, and again, this is, I think it's because I've seen it again. Every single time they kind of lay out a little bit of breadcrumbs for you to follow till the twist at the end. I was picking up on all of them the second time around a lot better. And for me, I was like, oh shit, they really wanted you to get this. Like as soon as the movie ended, they wanted you to have it. They didn't want you to have any like, oh shit, okay, I've got to look it up. What the fuck was that weird tunnel they were in? They wanted you to know. And there's just like, from like minute 5, when Gray and Deacon are having that first conversation about the pagans, they were like, well, they worshipped real things that you could see and interact with. And you're worshiping a thing that you don't see, and you have to kind of, you're worshiping the what ifs. For me, immediately, I was like, oh shit, they really want you to know, like, 5 minutes into this movie, that there's a real fucking thing under that church. And I love that.
That scene, I think, was actually later on in the movie. That's when they're in the bar, when it's Gray and Deacon talking after Father Krog jumps. So it's actually like much later in the movie. But yeah, I liked that conversation. Maybe they had like a very similar conversation that I'm not remembering, but I definitely remember that one and what you're saying. Like word for word is what they're saying in the bar, like a little over an hour in after Father Krog jumps, when they're just like, okay, we need a fucking drink. Let's try to unwind after what we just witnessed. And I liked that scene. Like I liked the kind of religious clash because again, Gray is not religious in this movie. Again, he's just there for a job. He doesn't really give a shit. And so
he's much closer to being pagan than being religious.
Yeah. And I kind of wish we would have got more of that almost like religious debate or clash. I remember writing down in my notes, I was like, I like this scene and I kind of like what they're saying in the dialogue in a sort of Wicker Man-esque way, where a lot of that movie is kind of Catholicism versus paganism, and they try to represent those religions as accurately as they could. And I'm like, why couldn't we just get more of this? Why are they waiting until right now to give us more of this clash? That's kind of interesting to actually listen to. And I will say, you mentioned the villagers. Yeah, I like that they kind of referenced the Wicker Man in this. Yeah, I don't know. I never got a vibe that it was supposed to be like all the village members being fucked up or sacrificing people.
Early. But I think there's a scene early on where there's a sheep that gets lit on fire outside of the cottage that they're in. And that's really like, that's fucked up. Like that scene too, I was like, I don't remember focusing on this the first time, I think because the twist caught me so heavily the first time I watched it, but that's fucked up. Don't light a sheep on fire. Like that's not kids being pranksters. That's fucked up. And Deacon fucking punches the kids in the face for it. And I'm like, yeah. You hit the child. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, to be fair, they're not like children. I think they were like maybe like teenagers. 17 or something. Yeah, they were they were old enough, old enough to know better. But
and they suck because they lit a sheep on fire, so they deserve to get punched.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't care what age you are. If you're deliberately lighting animals on fire, yeah, you can take a punch.
You can get bent.
You can take a hook. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for me, I would love to see this redone with a higher budget and maybe a bit more. I think you're right that I'd like to see it's hard to show stuff from the twist without the twist really being given away. I think there were things they could have done with a better budget. Like they talk about how the walls of the church itself are what's making the noises, and it's like moving through solid walls because it's like it literally is the body of this like pagan god underneath the ground that's like moved up into the church walls. And I think they could have done stuff like make the fucking walls bleed. That'd be dope. I think that would have been a really easy way to do it. Like make the walls kind of crack when they go into the tunnel that is the stomach of this thing. It does start to change. It's not like a tunnel as much as it's like it does look a bit like skin and like internal organ, which I think is great. It moves, which is it's terrifying. The last 2 minutes of this movie do fucking terrify me. I'm not claustrophobic, but I hate the last 2 minutes of this movie in a way that is amazingly done. But they could, I think with a better budget, they could do more with making the church kind of a bit more like fuckery. they could make the ground kind of. They show a shot from above that's taken from like a plane where they show that they're like the area around the church, and it's like it's almost like an eye or like a mouth all the way around the church, and I'm like, that's fucking rad, and you could do more with that with more budget. So yeah, I think I would love to see this more budget, but I still loved this.
Yeah, I don't entirely view it as like a last shift and Malum situation because even last shift had really good scares and moments of intrigue going throughout it. For this, all you really have for atmosphere setting up and scares are these nighttime sequences where you just have the static camera shots, which isn't terrible. I like that
Mm.
about, for example, again, Paranormal Activity. But the difference is that Paranormal Activity establishes that there is a demon in their household connected to Katie. And so when you see those shots, your imagination is running. You know what to be afraid of and what could happen. With this, they don't establish any of that. So they just start showing you
Yeah.
nighttime camera angles, and you're just kind of like, all right, what am I supposed to be afraid of? What am I supposed to be looking for,
Mm.
looking at? And so it just never was effective to me. Again, it's very much a budget thing, I believe, but yeah, I just don't feel like in terms of world building, they did a great job with that. I'll say it again. There was no threat established until the very, very, very end of the movie. And so it just
Yeah.
seemed very boring to me. It was kind of aimless. And yeah, it's
I
just like
will
the last minute or
say.
two is cool, but it's not enough for me. Like I can't
Mm,
rate a movie positively because the last 60 seconds were really cool when everything else to me was like kind of whatever, you know?
I will say I think that this movie is um it's a mystery as much as it's a horror movie.
Yeah, it's a procedural.
And
That's a good word for it.
I think that that's like that you have to be ready for that. If you come into this thinking it's going to be fucking Paranormal Activity where every single time it cuts to a static shot something's going to happen and you're going to be afraid, you're going to be a little disappointed. Um, but that for me it was never a problem either time that I've watched this movie because I was drawn in by the characters and the actual mystery and the procedural. And the second time watching it through, I was more scared watching this movie because I knew what it was. I knew what the twist was, and that's why I also think if this got remade and with a higher budget, you could show more because the twist is already out there. The movie's already been made, and so you could do a little more with that. But I don't know. I never had the problem of thinking like I wish more was happening because I was really drawn in by the characters and by the actual procedural of it. Um, oh, and one more thing we didn't mention: the reason Mark is such a dick to Deacon is because Deacon went on a investigation in Brazil, I want to say, with a
Yeah.
bunch of like 7 other priests and a bunch of other people because people were seeing the face of God and like they were being healed and there was miracles going on. It was all a scam. When they were found out, the locals killed all of the priests. They panicked. They didn't want it to be revealed that it was a scam. Clearly, they were making a lot of money or whatever was going on there. They killed all the priests there. The only reason Deacon didn't get killed is because he was passed out drunk. And so Mark blames Deacon for that, doesn't trust him, doesn't like him, blames him for 7 priests being fucking murdered in the jungle in Brazil. But completely understandable. Honestly, like, I fucking get it. And Mark, the whole time, like, as soon as Father Krellick killed himself, Mark was like, okay, he was making it up. He killed himself. We're good. We leave. We go. And if they'd have just fucking listened to Mark, and Deacon was the one who was like, no, actually, something's going on here.
Yeah.
Something's going on here, and we need to figure this out. And if they just fucking listened to Mark and left, they'd all be alive.
And that's an issue that I had as well is that after that scene, when they were going to leave, Deacon's just like, no, they're going to sweep this under the rug. Like, we got to go back. It's like, this feels so contrived. It's like, what are you basing that off of? And like, if that's a thing with this village and its people, why was that not set up earlier that you have some kind of history here? And just, yeah, it's,
I think it happened. I think you got swept up with Father Krellick killing himself because it's that exact same scene is when Gray and Deacon and Mark swap. Because Gray the whole time was like, you don't believe that this shit can be real? And Deacon's always like, it's always a scam. It's always a scam and it's never real. And so they spend the first bit of the movie before Mark shows up kind of pulling Gray over to Deacon's side of like, it's not real. It's always a scam. And then when Mark goes to find Father Krellick, Deacon and Gray are listening to a sound machine so they can hear
Mhm.
inside the walls, and they turn the machine off and the sound keeps going. And that, I think, is Deacon. That's when the flip switches for Deacon, and he's like, it's real. There's something here. Something needs to be found here. There's something here. And Mark goes up and sees Krellick kill himself, and it flips for him the other way of, oh, it's a fucking sham. This guy killed himself to avoid it. And I think that was really, for me, that was really well done of like, Deacon has bought into this now. And Gray has been with Deacon this whole time. Even when they were fighting, Gray has believed what Deacon has believed. And I think that just makes the ending even more just really tragic for Gray.
Yeah,
Like,
it
I don't
is.
know. I really felt bad for that guy. And with the acting in that last scene when they're screaming and I don't know, that was just really fucking good.
Yeah, it just again my main issues, no real establishment of a threat, because again, if you want to talk about another kind of investigative procedural, I'm going to bring it up even though it's not incredibly similar in terms of the style and the general plot. Cure, the 1997 movie Cure, like that's a investigative procedural, and even though that's a slow burn, and it also has a shift to where it kind of gets a little supernatural toward the end. Like they establish Mamiya, like the bad guy, like they establish what he can do, what he's capable of. They really give you something to fear with him, and they fully establish again who he is, what he's capable of, what he's doing. You still don't know why, you still don't know what's going on entirely with him, why he is the way he is. So there's still a lot of intrigue, but they still do set up him as a threat and as an antagonist. And that's again my problem here is that they just don't have anything like that with this kind of being,
Yeah.
or even Father Krellick if they wanted to do a misdirect or
I think
whatever.
could have been, yeah. I think
I
Father
think it's
Krellick
a
could
bit
have
of a
been
missed
more
opportunity.
sinister.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, this came out in 2013. This was like right in the throes of the found footage boom because of course even though Blair Witch Project came out in 99 and that kind of put it on the map and on the scene in terms of having a full film done in that style, it really wasn't until Paranormal Activity came out in 2009 theatrically that really blew it up to where everybody was like, okay, we got to make this. We can make a shit ton of money with, not really a whole lot technologically or with actors or extras or whatever. And this kind of feels like one of those where the people involved were like, hey, we can do that. We can make something like that. And yeah, it just feels like they took some elements of The Last Exorcism, Paranormal Activity, and Blair Witch, and they just kind of threw it together. And it's just that until the final minute where it's their own kind of original idea. And I would have liked if they had more original ideas leading until that
yeah,
1 minute at the end.
I think that's fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's fair, and I think if you're someone who really likes vibes and tone in a movie, if you're okay with a slow burn that's a lot more mystery than horror until it's truly really horrific right at the end, I think you really love this. I'm like that. I love a slow burn. Alien's one of my favorite horror movies for that exact reason. Um, then you'll really love this. I think if you need action through the whole thing, this might not be the one for you. Um, I do think it's worth the hour and a half, even just to see the last scene, because I do think it really is. It's one of my favorite twists, I think, in horror movies. Uh, it's really, for me, it's really well done. I know Joe would want more excitement leading up to the twist, but for me, I absolutely loved it.
Well, no, not even necessarily more excitement because, again, I typically enjoy a good slow burn as well. Again, Cure, which is arguably my all time favorite movie, that's very much a slow burn
Mm.
movie. And so, same with Pulse by the same director. I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy that thing. I just want more to chew on until you get to like that final act. That's what I want, and I just don't feel this movie gave it to me in terms of plot, in terms of scares and atmosphere. I just don't feel like I got it, and I'm fine with the slow burn element. I just
Mm-hmm.
want more leading up to when things kind of kick into
Uh-huh.
gear.
I think in a year I might force you to rewatch this just to see if you like it a lot better on a rewatch with the twist, like knowing where it goes. Because I liked it more of a second watch. I really liked it the first watch. I think I'd probably have given it like a 6 out of 10. I liked it more this watch, knowing where it was going and seeing all the breadcrumbs leading up to it. So maybe in a year I'll be like, "Hey Joe, you have to rewatch Final Prayer. You have to rewatch Borderlands. Uh, you don't have a choice. I'm
I
in
mean,
your
we'll
walls."
see. it's a gamble for you because one of our other friends, we had the same situation. So As Above, So Below, when that came out, I watched it, I think around like 2016 or 17, and did not
Not a
like
fan.
it. Yeah, not a fan. I think it's John Eric Dowdle's best movie, which isn't saying much. I've seen all of his horror movies. I don't think any of them are particularly good. Not to shit on him. He's just somebody where I've watched like all of them and I've
I
given
should
them
go
a
in
fair
this.
shot. I've given them all a fair shot, and I'm just like, you know what, man? I just don't think your movies are for me. You're just kind of in that club, like that Andre Overdahl club, where like I've given you several chances, and it's just not really my bag. No hate to the man, but yeah, like our friend recently, they were like, "Oh, well, I really like it. You should watch it with me and give it another shot." And then I disliked it even more because having watched it a second, like the experience of watching it a second time, I was able to find more things that angered me and that frustrated me. I was
Mhm.
able to put my focus on some different things, so I noticed more issues. So I actually disliked it more. And so we'll see. Maybe this is a
We'll
situation where
take
if I
that
watch it a
risk.
year or two from now, and maybe I will like it more, maybe I will appreciate some things more, or maybe I'll just find more things to kind of get mad at. Not this movie really made me mad. I was just
Mhm.
kind of
You just
bored
weren't impressed.
throughout it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I was just kind of unimpressed. It just felt very derivative in a lot of ways. And again, I think I was kind of spoiled because, like I said, the 2021 movie The Medium, it's a Thai horror film, very good. It's one I think we should
Mhm.
watch at some point. It's on Shutter. It's by one of the directors who made Shutter.
The Wailing.
No, not The Wailing. That's a Korean movie, but he made Shutter. And so, yeah, that one's great. Very similar premise, except that one throws in much more of an element of
Mm.
like demonic possession, but same kind of principle of medium or somebody involved with religion who kind of doubts their faith a bit. They're kind of skeptical, and especially like the third act of where it goes. But I think I was spoiled because that movie, it gets so fucking crazy at the end, and I don't
Mhm.
just mean the final like 5 minutes, like the whole
Yep.
third act. It's same thing. That movie's kind of long, and that's also sort of a slow burn, but you get a lot of payoff with action in the third bit. I think a lot of
Yeah.
East Asian horror is like that, where they're more procedural in the first and second act, and then you get in that third act, and it's just like balls to the wall, like
I
relentless
think.
terror for the entire
Yeah.
third act.
I think you would have hated this movie if it was 20 minutes longer.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so
And
too.
I think unless all 20 minutes of that were like directly addressing all of the issues you have with it now, this movie I think is a very for a slow burn, and I think this is a slow burn. It's a brisk 120.
Yeah, it's not
120,
long.
125 with or without um
Credits.
like credits, yeah, forward and back. So I don't know. I think we'll leave it at that. I thought it was really good. Joe didn't. And I think, Joe, I think you have a game that I'm going to struggle with now.
Yes, we didn't mention it at the very beginning. This was a game that we did in episode 0, the mythical episode,
God.
and it is so the game we're going to play, you can play along at home. We have snippets of, well, actually 11. We have 11 songs that are from notable horror movies. They're about 10 to 15 seconds each, and Prentice is going to see how many he can get. So I do have little hints that I can give, and we're going to go ahead and get into it. So I tried to have some mercy on you because last time it was 25,
Mhm, mhm.
and like I said at the ending of episode
Oh,
1, I really
no.
thought you were going to go through it. I'm like, man, like I want
Yes.
like a good game to last a while, and like he's going to get this in like 10 minutes, and we were there for like almost a fucking hour.
Yeah, I got, there were 25 of them with hints and clues. I think I got maybe 11 of them. So we're going to see if this goes any better for me this time. I was pretty confident last time, and then I just completely fucking did not do well. So we'll have to see how this goes.
Okay, number 1.
Yeah, I really hope this is as obvious as I think it is. I'm gonna say Jaws.
It is Jaws. Well done.
Okay.
I wanted to give you a good tune-up for the
False sense
first
of
one.
security.
I wanted to give you a good warm-up. Wanted to give
Okay.
you a little tune-up question. All right, number 2.
Like I should know this. It seems so familiar. Can I get a release year before you play it for me again?
Release year is 1980.
Is this The Wicker Man?
It is not. That's not the release year of The Wicker Man.
So it's genuinely so familiar.
You know it.
I do. And that's the problem, is that I know it. I cannot think of a name of it. Uh,
Do you get one replay?
yeah, I'd like the replay.
Sure.
Is this? I've locked myself into two movies that I think both came out in 1980. It's either The Shining or it's The Fog. I'm gonna go with The Shining just because it's number two, so it's got to be the more obvious one.
It is The Shining.
Okay, good, good.
Were
Oh
you
my
looking at
god.
my Were you looking at my webcam? I thought you were testing to see if I would give it away. I was hoping I poker faced it well enough.
If I have it open, I didn't see any reaction from you, so you're good.
Okay, number three.
Not to be a broken record, but is that one The Wicker Man?
No.
If so, oh, it's got no, because The Wicker Man's music doesn't match the
Yeah, that is
movies,
definitely not Wicker Man
the down
music.
tone. But that's like for me, that's such this horror right now, this number three is such English countryside music that I'm just trying to figure it out. Can I get a year?
Release year 1968.
1968. What? That's too early. It's not Night. Is it Night of the Living Dead?
It is. It is Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, I love that movie. I should have got that way sooner.
You still got it. Yeah, you still got that one really quickly. I was gonna say another hint, if you want to call it that, was gonna be you're gonna be pretty upset if you don't get this one.
Yeah, I don't get this movie.
All right,
All
number
right, give
four.
me number four.
Do it.
I'm not about to say Wicker Man for the third time in a row. Uh, can I get a release year? But I think I know what it is without one, but I'd like it to be sure.
1973.
Oh, damn it. It might actually be The Wicker Man. Oh, fuck. I can't remember when The Wicker Man came out. Was a problem. I'll lock in The Wicker Man just because
It
it's
is
got to
the
be one of
Wicker
these.
Man.
Okay, thank God.
It's
I was
Willow's
like, what came out in
song.
1973? Yeah, I heard the chime. I was like, it's English countryside music.
Yeah, I
One
was
of
gonna
it's
put.
Wicker Man.
I initially was gonna put in the Corn Rig song from the beginning that I love when he's like actually flying to
Mm,
Summer Isle because I love
mhm.
that song, and then I remembered like, oh yeah, Willow's song, like the most iconic one from the movie. I should probably go
Yeah.
with that. It was gonna be hilarious if we
I,
spent like 10 minutes on that one. If for three in a row you guessed the
I
Wicker Man
guess The Wicker
immediately, and
Man.
then when it
And
actually is the
didn't
Wicker
guess the
Man.
one where it actually was.
Oh man. All right. Yep. You got it though. Number five.
What a good tone. Oh my God. Um, I'll make a wild. I don't know what this is, so I'll make a wild guess before I ask for year. I'll say Poltergeist.
It's not Poltergeist.
All right. Can I get a release year?
Release year 1979.
1979.
79.
This isn't Alien, is it?
It is Alien.
Oh my God.
Main
Okay.
title of Alien.
What? Yeah, I was like, what a great tone to set, and then didn't guess the movie that I think has one of the best tones in horror. All right.
Yeah, when you said that, I was tempted to say like, yeah, I'm sure you do think so. This is like
Correct.
arguably your number one movie.
All right, hit me with the next one.
All right, number six.
Okay, I'm gonna guess the one that I wanted to guess for Wicker Man. Is this Midsommar?
It's not.
Okay. Now can I get a release here?
2009.
2009. I think a
2009.
recognizable horror movie came out of 2009. The worst year for horror. Friday the 13th remake?
No. That would be some really wonky music for a Friday movie.
Yeah, tell me about it. What came out in 2009? One of the Human Centipede movies came out in 2009. I'll lock that in.
It is not Human Centipede, but I think the first one did come out in
Is,
'09.
is it? Fuck. What's the Sam Raimi horror movie?
It is not Drag Me to Hell.
I got no fucking clue. I'm gonna guess The Road. That came out in 2008, 2009?
Somewhere around there, maybe 10 or
Yeah,
11. I don't know,
2010
but
maybe? Yeah, I don't know.
okay. I'm gonna give you a big hint. This is an animated movie.
It's not Perfect Blue.
No, that was '90s.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no fucking chance that's Perfect Blue. Animated horror movie,
Yeah,
2009. What? Is it Coraline?
it is Coraline. Well done.
Jesus. That's a PG movie.
It is, but I mean, it's horror. It's like kid-friendly
Content
horror,
for all
but
ages.
it's a bit of a curveball. But
Oh, yeah, ignore all my swearing. We do content for all ages.
all right, number seven.
Uh, well, first of all, I'm going to say Inception just because of the horn laws, but it's not Inception. Is this Saw?
It is not Saw.
Damn. Wait,
Hadn't
give
thought
me
of
a
it,
year
but
again.
so the release year 2018.
Oh, fuck. Is it one I've already said? No,
Or
Midsommar
excuse me, I
wasn't
believe
2018.
it's.
Don't Google it. I can see your screen. If
You
you're
definitely
wrong,
know
you're
it.
wrong. It's not Hereditary.
No, it is not
It's
Hereditary.
not. House of Jack Build came out in 2018, but I don't think you've seen that, so I don't think you'd pick it.
No, I've not seen that. And yeah, it is
Uh,
2018.
is it a movie you love?
No,
Is it a movie you hate?
no.
Huh.
I feel like that doesn't help.
It
Knowing
doesn't
that
at
I'm,
all.
yeah, knowing that I'm
You're
perfectly neutral.
ambivalent to it. Is it? Did A Quiet Place come out in 2018?
It did, but it is not A Quiet Place. Though I am also very neutral toward that movie.
What movie came out in 2018? Annihilation came out in 2018. Is it Annihilation?
No, that also had great music though. Fuck, I should have
That movie,
included Annihilation. That would have been a good one.
that movie bangs. That movie's
Yeah, it's
incredible.
got a killer soundtrack.
Um, so it's not Possum
No,
because you love that movie. It's not
yeah,
Truth or Dare because that movie's nothing. You wouldn't think of it.
yeah.
I can't think of another movie that came out. You know what? An Insidious movie had to have come out in 2018. So I'll lock in whatever Insidious movie came out in 2018 or Paranormal Activity. They alternated for a couple of years. It's one of those two. I'll lock in whichever one of those
It
came
is
out in
not.
2018.
It is
I have
not,
no
but I
fucking
will give
clue.
you a hint. It is part of a very big horror franchise, like horror royalty.
Horror royalty.
Very big, very huge horror franchise. 2018 release.
Is it Is it more than two movies?
Oh yeah.
This franchise.
Oh yeah.
Is it one of the Purge movies?
No.
Is it
Think bigger. Think bigger.
think bigger?
Yeah, like in terms of, again, like let horror royalty stand out to you, like a big franchise.
Is it a Predator movie?
It is not bigger.
Bigger?
Yeah, in
There's
terms
no
of
way a
horror
Friday
notoriety.
movie came out. There's no way a Friday movie came out that year, right? Is it a
No, we have
Hellraiser movie?
no, we have not gotten an official Friday movie since 2009, and it is not a Hellraiser movie.
Is it a Conjuring movie?
No,
Is it a Saw movie?
no, even bigger.
Child's Play.
No, even bigger.
Is it an
Like for
Alien
horror,
movie?
no.
Christ, I have no idea.
You know what? Think of the biggest franchises in horror.
Exorcist.
No,
Friday
you're on
the
the right track.
13th.
No,
I'm on the right track with The Exorcist.
in terms of like them being really big, Exorcist and Friday are two like better guesses. You're
It's not Doctor Sleep.
no,
It's not no Nightmare movie came out that year.
mm-mm.
No Alien movie came out that year. Thing remake was 2011
Correct.
or Thing prequel. Jesus, I'm gonna feel stupid. You're certain it came out 2018?
I'm certain. Yeah,
I got no fucking idea. It's not a Hell House movie.
no. Again,
It's not
like
a Cloverfield movie. It's not Quiet Place.
no. Again, think literally just the biggest franchises that have existed in all of horror.
Cube. It's a Cube movie. I have no fucking
No.
clue, dude. I'm gonna have to.
Okay,
I'm throwing in the towel on this one. I genuinely have no idea.
I'll try with one more hint. This is not the very first of the series. This is like a long-standing horror franchise, like Friday or like The Exorcist. But an installment was made in 2018.
I already said I already guessed Insidious, so it's
You
not
did.
that. It's the Halloween remake.
It is Halloween
Jesus
2018
Christ.
when Allison sees the shape for the first time.
Oh my god. All right. This is
Banger
about
song,
how
by
my
the way.
last time, everyone. Yeah, that's why I didn't think it was a Halloween remake. That movie sucks.
Not only the 2018 one sucks, the other ones kind of do, but that one's okay. But
That's
always
that's
banger
fine.
music,
That's
though.
fair. That's
It's a
true.
banger. All right, number 8.
Yeah, I really want to say, and I think I'm wrong, but I want to say it just in case. Texas Chainsaw.
You have more confidence because you're right. That is Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Hell yeah.
for
All
74.
right.
Going right into number 9.
I can say with confidence that this movie either came out in the 80s or the 2010s.
It is 2010s. I'll give you that.
2010s. Okay. Is it good? Is it considered good?
Yes, I think it's good and it's considered good.
Interesting. The fact that you think it's good is actually just as telling. Um, there's too much. There's too much in it for it to be. Is it? It Follows.
It is It Follows. Old Maid.
Banger. All right. I was gonna say The Witch, but I was. There's too much techno in that for it to be a Witch soundtrack.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely not like the Wish soundtrack at all. But a hint I had was going to be that this song was not the song. this movie was featured in the last game, but I used the main title theme.
Ah,
But this one I used Old Maid because they're both great. That whole freaking soundtrack by Disaster
yeah,
Piece is so
the
good.
movie slaps.
All right, number 10.
And the Holocaust. Jesus, I don't fucking know. Tarzan? uh, oh man. Uh, you know what? I'll stick with my joke answer. Cannibal Holocaust.
No.
All right.
Though I
need
can
to
see
really
it though.
Yeah, right. There's some jungle elements going on there.
Yeah, the heavy drums.
All right. What? Give me a release here.
2017.
2017. Do you think this movie's good?
It is near and dear to our hearts. That is all I will say.
To our hearts. The Ritual.
No.
Oh, damn, I love that movie. What other movie came out that year? Really stretching me to remember movies that came out that year. It?
No.
Chapter 1? I love that movie. Have we talked about this movie recently?
We talked about it a good bit, but not recently, no.
Not
Like, it's not Get Out.
recently. And so it's not Terrified either, because that we talked about recently.
Correct.
Did The Endless come out that year?
I think it did. It is not The Endless.
One of those trilogy of movies came out that year.
Is that a trilogy?
Unofficially.
Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead.
Yeah. Banger. Absolute banger. It's not an alien movie. Although
Correct.
one of them came out that year. It's
Think
not
Covenant.
It Comes at Night, which I think came out that year. Or was that 2018?
I think it was 17.
That movie's a banger. Is this, and if this came out this year, I'm a genius. The Bye Bye Man.
It is the Bye Bye Man.
We hate that movie.
We do. We fucking hate that movie. It's such a meme for us. That's why I said near and dear to our hearts. That's why I didn't want to answer when you said, "Do you think it's good?"
What movies do we share an opinion on? The Bye Bye Man sucks ass. All right, fair. Okay, you got me with that one. I couldn't remember. I couldn't really remember the plot of that movie, let alone the soundtrack. All right, hit me with the
I
last one.
had to do it to you. All right, number 11, the final
man.
one.
Are these the end credit songs?
No.
Okay, I've got two guesses then before I ask for a year. Either Mandy or Titane.
No and no.
Okay. Can
That
I
is
get a
very
year?
far. Yeah, that is very far from the Mandy soundtrack for sure. Released here, 1988.
88 slasher?
No. I know, it's a big surprise. There were actual horror movies that came out in the 80s that were not slashers, I know.
Is it a parody movie?
No.
Okay, so that gets clowns off the list.
Why do you have that under parody movie? What's a parodying?
Or I guess like not a parody. Is it Killer Clowns?
It is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. The opening track by the Dickies.
From that year, so it was a slasher or it was Killer Clowns.
Yep, so that is it.
Okay.
Please let us know how you did down in the comments below. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Killed Off Screen podcast. If you have any movies that you'd like us to watch and possibly review and discuss here on the podcast, you can send them to us at killedoffscreenpod@gmail.com. For our next episode, we're going to be talking about the somewhat divisive 2004 Zack Snyder directed Dawn of the Dead remake. So if you don't want to be spoiled for that, feel free to go ahead and watch it by the time the next episode comes out, and we will see you then. Later.